you, and welcome to the show this day. Today's topic is the Tennessee State University Marching Band, and we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the Tennessee State University Marching Band the director, Mr. Edward Graves, who is not only the director of the Tennessee State University Marching Band, but he's also a longtime professor at Tennessee State University. And Professor Graves, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. It's truly an honor to be here.
You know, Professor Graves, I think that many people have been simply thrilled by the antics of the Tennessee State University Marching Band. And I happen to recall this past week that you played before some 60-odd thousand people in Memphis at the Classic. And I think within that context, we can really talk about the band today. But before we talk about the band, let's talk about Ed Graves, and to have you to give us some information about your background, your education, and perhaps some of those things that were important and influential in your life that eventually led you to that seat this morning. Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Okay, well, that's really an honor to be able to do that. I grew up in Forest, Mississippi, a small town of about 5,000 people, which is east of Jackson. My parents were both educators. My father was a county agent, and my mother was a school teacher. Of course, we came from a family there that really believed in education and the value of an education. I have two brothers and a sister. One of my brothers is a pediatrician. He was educated at Meharry and Howard University. I have another brother that's a dentist. Received his bachelor's degree at Tennessee State University and his dental degree at Meharry. Have a sister that got an education at Tuskegee University, and she's a dietitian. So our parents were, they got all of us educated.
In education.
Yes, and of course I, in watching one day with my father a football game back in 1955 or so, we saw a football game in Chicago, Chicago Bears, and I believe it was Los Angeles Rams, and at halftime, the Tennessee State University Band was featured.
As early as that date.
That's right. And at that point, I decided, I remember saying to him, you know, that's where I want to go to school, where we could be in an organization that performs like that, and a school where that gets that kind of exposure. So that's where we began. My family, to kind of carry that on with the belief of our parents in terms of a value of education, they were both great supporters of their alma mater, which is Alcorn State University. I have my wife and I. My wife's a nurse. We have two children. My oldest daughter had a degree in chemistry from Tennessee State University, and a dental degree from Meharry. She's presently on the staff at teaching faculty at Columbia University in New York as a prosthodontist. My youngest daughter has a PhD in biomedical engineering. She got her bachelor's degree at Spelman and a dual degree at Boston University, master's and a PhD at Case Western Reserve. So we've tried to carry on the tradition and beliefs of our parents in terms of the value of education, which gives me to the point of, after completing my bachelor's here at Tennessee State University, being greatly influenced by Mr. Frank Greer and Dr. Edward C. Lewis, and encouraged to go on to get a master's in music education at the University of Illinois, and which prepared me to just carry on the kind of ideals and the principles that I was taught at Tennessee State University and at home to want to fulfill and live the dream of just continue to be involved in instrumental music education, and particularly with the aristocrat of bands, which is almost like a dream come true. After completing the master's at Illinois, we started out, I was very fortunate to get a position as the band director at Tuskegee Institute. Went from Tuskegee to North Carolina A&T, and then to Shaw University, where I eventually got to be the head of the department in addition to the director of bands there. And from Shaw, we came to Tennessee State in 1979. and we've just been having a ball and really enjoying being back home at Tennessee State University. I think that the honor that really starts all of this is that we were visited by Mr. Greer, where we at Shaw honored him in a festival that we were having there. And he came back and talked with Dr. Lewis, and they talked with me and invited me to Tennessee State for a week's visit. And well, before I left here, I was the director of bands
at Tennessee State. You know, looking back over that, what about your early musical education? You see, because in order to even have an aspiration to be a part of the band at this great this great halftime activity that you witnessed, you had to have had some kind of inspirational toward music education, have been involved. I mean, how did that come about? How did you become involved in that?
Well, from the very beginning, in my hometown, of course, we had a small school there where you maybe everything was from grade 1 through 12. We had a principal that really believed in activities for students. Everybody in that school had to be involved in something. At one time, the principal taught agriculture, was the football coach, basketball coach, taught agriculture and something else too, did everything. He had all the keys to everything. He started a band by bringing a man at that time that was a band director at Alcorn, and he came to our school once a week. So that's where we started. I started when I think it was 7th grade. My band director took myself and another student from that program to Chicago to Vandercook College of Music in the summertime for 2 summers, where we were exposed at another level, and which really helped prepare me to come to Tennessee State and be involved with the outstanding program here. Of course, clarinet was my major instrument, and I was greatly influenced there when I first got to Tennessee State with clarinet teachers of Mr. Ancio Francisco. That was Mr. Greer's assistant band director, and later by Mr. Benjamin Butler, who was a graduate of Tennessee State and one of Mr. Greer's students that really guided us all at that time. And, you know, Dr. Haney, when we graduated Tennessee State in 1962, there were 6 members in my class that went on to be college band directors. And this is something that has really given me the interest to want to build the same type of thing here with our students now. We're getting a lot of calls and interest from people around the country wanting Tennessee State University band directors. And all of this, I think that are some values that I brought from home with me through Tennessee State University that enabled me to go places like the University of Illinois and be able to compete and survive through that and get the most of the opportunities I had in terms of being able to get an education.
You know, when you look at this, at the band, and I think that all of that information simply, and we're just about a minute from our first commercial break, but during that break, let us have you to sort of reflect on the band itself, which is to say that this is a world-known and world-famous band because you've made international trips and et cetera. And since you've been involved in most of that, when we come back during the second segment, what we want you to do is to look at that band and think about how small it was when it started, when you first met that band, and some of the challenges that you've been able to overcome in order to, this past weekend, as we said, in order to carry that band in front of some 62,000 people. In the Liberty Bowl in the city of Memphis, you see, and we believe that that was an extraordinary accomplishment, but that is only one of the things that that band has been doing, I know personally, for many, many years. And so let's talk about it from that perspective when we come back. Let's talk about the band. I think that way will give us an opportunity. And we'll be back with you following this short